Sold to the Impotent Billionaire Boss, written and produced by Billionaire Crib, narrated by Helen Voss. Prologue. I was sold like property. Number. A debt. Disposable girl. But nothing prepared me for the man who bought me. Cassian Rhys Blackwell. Billionaire. Cold. Untouchable. A man rumored to be incapable of desire. And far too dangerous to be pitied. They call him the impotent boss. What they don't know is that whatever broke him runs deeper than the body, darker than the past, twisted enough to make even monsters afraid of him. From the moment he claimed me, I felt it. His eyes lingering on me like a memory he hates. His touch trembling like he wants me. But something inside him refuses to let him. Then I found the locked room in his mansion, the music box, the blood-stained ribbon, and the photograph of a girl who looks exactly like me. A girl who died 14 years ago. Now Cassian watches me like I'm her ghost, protects me like I'm his obsession, fears me like I'm the only thing strong enough to destroy him. But the more I uncover about him, the more I remember things I shouldn't. Nightmares that feel like memories, whispers that sound like warnings. And when the truth finally unravels, I'm no longer sure if I was sold to him or delivered. Because Cassian Blackwell isn't impotent. He's cursed, haunted, and completely capable of breaking me in every way that matters. Yet he's also the only man I've ever wanted to save. Even if loving him means remembering the night that ruined us both. Chapter 1. I didn't think the night would end with a chain around my wrist, but that's exactly where I found myself, dragged through a rusted metal door by the very man who should have protected me. My uncle's fingers dug into my skin so hard the bones ached, but I didn't fight. Fighting only made him angrier, and anger made him unpredictable. The underground air was thick, humid, and smelled of sweat and desperation. I heard the echoes before I saw the room, men talking, laughing, bidding. My stomach knotted. I recognized the sound from childhood stories whispered to frighten little girls into obedience. This wasn't a marketplace. It was an auction. Human one. My uncle shoved me forward as if he couldn't bear to hold me anymore. "Keep your mouth shut," he muttered, straightening his cheap jacket. "And remember, this is your fault." He said it like he believed it. Like I'd asked for the debt he owed dangerous men. Like I'd done something to deserve being sold. My breath trembled as we stepped into the main room. Smoke curled through dim air thick enough to choke on. Men with too much money and not enough conscience lounged in velvet chairs arranged around a raised platform. There were no women. None that weren't being displayed anyway. The moment I appeared, conversations dipped and eyes lifted. Heat flooded my cheeks. I forced myself to stare past them, past the hunger, the boredom, the cruelty. I imagined myself somewhere else. Anywhere else. But reality snapped back quick and sharp as my uncle shoved me onto the platform. "Fresh," the auctioneer announced, inspecting me like livestock. He turned my chin right, then left. "Pretty. Young. Untouched." A murmur rippled through the room. I felt hands that weren't really there. Ghosts of all the futures these men would try to carve out of my skin. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to form any shield I could. The first bid came instantly. 10,000. Too come. Too casual. Like he was buying a new watch. Another voice followed. 20. 30. The numbers climbed higher, each one slicing at me like a blade. 30,000. 35. 40. I felt my heart tightening with every figure. I didn't know whether to be grateful I wasn't being sold for cheap, or horrified that I had any price at all. I didn't cry. I refused to. Then the room shifted, even before I knew why. Silence crawled in from the edges, swallowing the murmurs, smothering the laughter. Every head turned toward the back. A presence entered before the man did. I felt it like cold fingers dragging down my spine. Then I saw him. Cassian Rhys Blackwell. I only recognized him because everyone else did. The richest, the coldest, the man people whispered about in cafes and boardrooms. The man rumored to buy women and then send them away untouched. They called him the impotent boss behind closed doors, too afraid to say it outside. He walked with the kind of confidence that made the air bow to him. His suit was black, crisp, and perfectly fitted. His expression was unreadable, carved from ice. He didn't spare a glance at the other men. He didn't need to. He looked at me, and the world felt too small. His eyes were storm gray, steady, unblinking, cold enough to freeze a fire. But there was something else. Something that flickered and vanished too quickly. Something like fear. Not of these men. Not of the auction. Of me. My throat dried. I wanted to look away, but he held me still with nothing but a gaze. The auctioneer stuttered and regained his voice. "Mr. Blackwell, sir, welcome. Shall we resume the bidding?" Cassian didn't answer. He didn't lift a hand. He didn't move. He simply said, 1 million. The room snapped. 1,000 invisible jaws dropped. I sucked in a breath I didn't mean to. 1 million. For me. My uncle staggered like his knees went weak. The auctioneer blinked rapidly, sweat forming along his brow. Sir, the bidding was at 40,000. I said, Cassian replied, voice low and smooth. 1 million. His tone allowed no argument. No man in the room dared to counter. They wouldn't have even if they wanted to. Cassian Blackwell wasn't someone you competed with. He was someone you stayed out of the way of. The gavel slammed down like a gunshot. Sold. The metal chain was unlocked from my wrist only long enough for a different one to be put on, this time held by the gloved hand of a guard in a black suit. Cassian didn't come near me. Not at first. He walked slowly toward the platform, each step deliberate, measured. My pulse raced with every echo of his shoes. His aura pressed into me before he was even close enough to touch. But he didn't touch me. He simply stood there, looking at me with a kind of intensity that felt like he was pulling apart every layer of my soul. "Come," he said softly. His voice wasn't gentle. It wasn't harsh. It was empty. Like he'd removed every emotion before letting the word out. I didn't move. Not because I was resisting. Because I couldn't. My legs locked. His eyes flickered, not anger, not impatience. Something else. Something that made the hairs on my arms rise. Recognition. Like I was someone he knew. Or someone he'd lost. Or someone he'd buried. He stepped closer. The guard stayed back, allowing Cassian full access to pull me away. But he still didn't touch me. He leaned just close enough that his breath brushed my cheek and whispered, "You're safe now." I almost laughed. Safe. With him. His gaze dipped to my mouth, then jerked away sharply, almost like the sight burned him. His jaw tightened. His hands curled, knuckles white. He was fighting something. Control. Memory. Pain. Maybe all three. Rumors of his impotence whispered through my mind. Rumors that said he was broken, cursed, haunted by a past that stole desire from him. Rumors that said he bought women only to lock them away. Rumors that felt suddenly too small to explain the way he looked at me. He turned away first, facing the exit. Without looking back, he said, "Follow me." And my body obeyed before my fear could disagree. I felt the eyes of every man in that room burn into my back as I hurried after him, the chain clinking softly with each step. But Cassian didn't look at me again. Not until we reached the door. Not until the guard bowed and stepped aside. Not until we were alone in the corridor. Then he turned. And this time the fear in his eyes didn't hide. This time I saw it fully, raw, sharp, undeniable. He wasn't afraid for me. He was afraid of me. And he whispered, almost too quietly, "Not again." The word struck something deep inside me, something dark and forgotten. Something that made my chest ache and my skin prickle. Something I couldn't explain. Because I had never met Cassian Blackwell before tonight. Least, I thought I hadn't. Chapter 2. The ride to Cassian Blackwell's mansion felt like a descent into another world. One colder, quieter, and far more dangerous than the underground auction I'd just been sold in. No one spoke during the drive. Not Cassian, not the stone-faced driver. Not the guard who sat beside me like a wall of muscle. The car's interior was silent except for the faint hum of the engine, and even that seemed afraid to disturb the man sitting beside me. Cassian stared out the window the entire time, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the darkness flashing by. Not once did he look at me. Not once did he acknowledge the $1 million he'd thrown away like pocket change. Not once did he react to the fact that I was sitting inches from him, bound by a thin chain and a fate I didn't choose. But his breath kept hitching at random intervals, tiny, almost unnoticeable breaks in the perfect rhythm of his calm exterior. And each time it happened, I caught him tightening his grip on the edge of his seat, as if resisting some invisible force. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Something heavy sat between us the entire way. When the gates to his mansion finally appeared, looming like black steel fangs, my lungs grew tight. The mansion beyond them was enormous. A towering Gothic structure with sharp lines and dark glass windows that reflected nothing. Exactly nothing. As if the building itself refused to mirror the world. The car pulled to a stop and Cassian stepped out first. He adjusted his cuffs, took a slow breath, and gestured for me to follow. His movements were controlled, precise, almost mechanical. Like he had drilled them into himself. "Come," he said. The same word he'd used at the auction. The same empty tone. I followed because what choice did I have? 2 guards stood by the mansion doors. They opened them the moment Cassian approached. He didn't speak to them. They didn't expect him to. Inside, the mansion swallowed me in silence. Everything was spotless, polished, minimalistic, and utterly devoid of mirrors. I didn't realize it at first. I was too busy taking in the size of the foyer, the marble floors, the towering ceilings, the distant hallways that stretched out like veins through the mansion. But as Cassian led me deeper inside, my mind kept searching for something familiar, something reflective, something normal. There was nothing. Not a single mirror on a wall. Not a reflective vase or decoration. Not even a glass surface that shone enough to catch my image. It was like he'd erased every possibility of seeing himself. Or seeing me. "Your room is this way," Cassian said, his voice tight. He walked faster now, as though distance between us somehow soothed him. I wasn't sure if I should feel relieved or offended. He led me down a long hallway and stopped at a heavy door. He unlocked it, opened it halfway and stepped aside. "You'll stay here." I stepped inside cautiously. The room was beautiful, but the beauty was cold, sterile. Large bed. Clean sheets. White walls. A dresser. No personal touches. No warmth. And no mirrors. I turned back to him. "There's no mirror." His expression didn't change. "There are none in the house." "Why?" A muscle in his jaw twitched. "You don't need to know that." I swallowed, sensing the wall I wasn't allowed to cross. Before I could blink, he shut the door. Then I heard it. Click. The lock sliding into place. Froze, breath hitching. I tested the handle. From the outside. Panic flared in my chest. I knocked once, twice. "Cassian, why are you locking the door?" He didn't answer. I listened. I couldn't hear footsteps. He didn't leave immediately. He lingered. Then I realized why. His shadow stretched across the bottom of the door. He was standing right outside. Listening. Watching. Guarding. I stepped back slowly, not wanting to provoke him or whatever invisible demon he was fighting. Hours passed. I wasn't sure how many, before exhaustion finally dragged me into sleep. But even then I wasn't alone. In the middle of the night, I woke up to the faintest creak of the door. I jolted upright, heart pounding, and saw a tall figure standing in the doorway's frame. Cassian. The lock must have been undone quietly while I slept. He stood there, not moving, not speaking, just watching me. The hallway light cast half his face in shadow, but I could still see the tightness in his jaw, the way his hand gripped the doorknob as if he were restraining himself from something dangerous. "Why are you watching me?" I whispered, my voice barely carrying across the room. He didn't respond. For a moment I thought he might actually step inside. But then he closed the door again softly, the click of the lock returning like a final verdict. Days passed like that. Every morning the door was unlocked. By evening, locked again from the outside. Cassian didn't touch me, didn't try to sleep with me, didn't even sit near me. He avoided physical contact as though I carried a poison that might seep into his skin. But he watched, always from doorways, always when he thought I was asleep, always with that same haunted look. A man locked in his own past. I started noticing other odd details. Entire wings of the mansion were blocked off, doors sealed, lights off, like ghosts lived there instead of people. Hallways with picture frames that held no photos. Rooms stripped of furniture. Empty spaces that hummed with secrets. I wasn't allowed in any of them. In fact, during one quiet afternoon, when I tried wandering past the boundaries he'd never clearly explained, a guard appeared out of nowhere and blocked my path. "Not that way," he said, stern. I swallowed my irritation and nodded, but my curiosity burned too fiercely to ignore. It was that curiosity that led me to the locked door at the end of a narrow hallway I didn't think anyone used. Dust gathered along the edges of the floor, but the doorknob was pristine. Someone used it. Recently. Touched it. Cold metal kissed my palm. I tried the handle. Of course. I leaned closer, pressing my ear to the wood, and I heard something faint inside. The soft click of something mechanical. A melody I couldn't quite place. A sound too gentle to belong in a place this hollow. It was gone seconds later. But it stayed in my mind, looping like a warning I didn't know how to interpret. I turned away just as footsteps echoed behind me. Cassian stood at the end of the hallway, eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. His expression wasn't cold this time. It was fear. Pure, unfiltered fear. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice sharper, lower. I was just looking around." His jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind. "This door is off limits." I noticed. He took a step forward. "Do not come near it again." "Why?" He didn't answer. Instead he reached past me, not touching me, never touching me, and slammed the lock into place. Then he backed away as though standing too close to me might ignite something uncontrollable inside him. I stared at him, trying to read him, trying to understand what he was trying so hard to hide. "Cassian," I whispered. "What's in that room?" He looked at me like I had become a nightmare he prayed would disappear. His voice came out broken. "Something you should never remember." And the way he said it, like he already believed I would. Like he already knew I was connected to it. Like he was terrified of the day I found out. Made the red flag unfurl in my chest like a warning I couldn't ignore. Chapter 3. I shouldn't have gone into the forbidden room. I knew it the instant the old brass key clicked and the lock gave way. The sound too loud, too sharp, like a scream in an otherwise mute house. Cassian's mansion is a place of whispers, of footsteps that echo like accusations, of walls that feel like they lean in to listen. But this room feels like a held breath. The air inside is cold. Not the expensive kind of cold pumped through hidden vents. No, this cold feels old, untouched, like the frost of a mausoleum. My fingers tremble as I push the door fully open and step inside. Dust dances in the thin beam of light slipping through the boarded-up window. The smell hits first. Old paper, metal, and something like faded perfume clinging to the air as though the room is still wearing the ghost of its previous owner. My gaze sweeps across the small space. A vanity without a mirror. A wilted bouquet turned to powder. A music box with a cracked porcelain ballerina frozen mid-pirouette. Her face chipped away. I move toward it, my heartbeat loud enough to drown out the silence. When I open the music box, the tune stutters, skips, then stops entirely. Something rattles inside, and when I tilt it, a thin ribbon slips out. Once pink, now stained with a dark rust-colored mark near the center. Blood. Old but unmistakable. My stomach knots. Whoever lived in this room didn't die peacefully. I should leave. I should run. I should pretend I never saw any of this. But then my eyes catch on something framed at the back of the dusty shelf. Photograph. The glass is cracked diagonally, like lightning frozen mid-strike. I lift it carefully, and the world stops. It's a girl. Teenage girl. And she looks exactly like me. Same cheekbones. Same jaw. Same eyes, wide, dark, perpetually seconds away from drowning in something unnamed. Her hair is the same length as mine, the same stubborn curl at the ends. If I didn't know better, I think I took this picture. But she's dressed in a style that doesn't belong to this decade. The photo itself is creased, yellowed around the edges. A date is scribbled at the bottom in Cassian's cold handwriting. 14 years ago. My hand goes numb around the frame. 14 years ago I was a child. Not this girl. Not whoever she was. Not whoever Cassian. Whoa. Whoever Cassian keeps locked away in this room like a memory he refuses to bury. I hear footsteps outside. Heavy. Controlled. Familiar. Cassian. Panic spikes as the hallway shadows shift. I don't have time to hide the photo before the door slams open with such force the hinges whine in protest. Cassian stands there, chest rising and falling too fast, eyes wide. There's something feral in his expression, something stripped of his usual cold restraint. And when his gaze drops to what I'm holding, everything in him fractures. Put it down, he breathes. Not a command. Plea. My voice comes out thin. Cassian, who is she? He doesn't answer. He steps inside slowly, like approaching a landmine, like one wrong move will detonate something neither of us can control. You shouldn't be in here. His voice is barely controlled, trembling around the edges. I didn't think anything could shake him, but he's trembling. Actually trembling. That girl, I whisper, forcing the words out. She looks like me. His jaw clenches, the muscle ticking. For a moment he looks younger. Haunted, broken, unbearably human. She's not you. His voice cracks. She's dead. The word sinks into the room like ink into paper. I look at the photo again, at the girl with my face but not my life, at the date that feels like an accusation. What happened to her? Cassian shuts his eyes like the question physically hurts him. When he opens them they look colder. Forced cold. Armor slipping back into place. You don't want to know. That's not your choice. His hand shoots out, grabbing my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to shake. It is my choice. I bought you to keep you safe, not to dig into. Safe. I yank my hand back. I'm in a mansion with no mirrors, locked doors, forbidden wings, and a room full of blood-stained reminders of a dead girl who could be my twin. Safe isn't the word I'd use, Cassian. Something snaps in him. He slams his palm against the wall behind me, caging me in. His breath ghosts over my cheek, hot with anger or fear. I can't tell the difference anymore. This isn't a game, he growls. You don't understand what you've walked into. Then explain it. I can't. He says it like a confession. Like he wants to. Like something someone won't let him. I take a breath, steadying myself against the storm swirling in his eyes. Who was she? He looks at the photo. And that's when I see it. Terror. Real bone-deep terror. Her name was Elara, he says finally, voice hollow. And I failed her. Failed her how? His gaze snaps back to mine. She died because of me. The floor tilts beneath me. The air between us thickens, charged with something dark, dangerous, and unspoken. You think I'm her, I whisper. Cassian flinches, a full-body jolt. I didn't want you here, he says. But when I saw you, when I saw her face on yours. His voice breaks. I knew something was coming back. Something I've spent 14 years running from. His fingers brush my jaw. Not touching, just hovering as though he's fighting himself. You shouldn't look like her, he murmurs. You shouldn't exist. A chill runs through me so sharp I feel it in my teeth. Cassian, what are you saying? He steps back abruptly, breathing hard, shaking his head like he needs distance from me just to stay sane. Stay out of this room. Stay out of my past. And don't make me remember her. He moves to leave. But then he stops in the doorway, voice low, rough, almost broken. If you keep digging, you'll end up just like Elara. Then he's gone, leaving me alone with the broken music box, the blood-stained ribbon, and the photograph of the dead girl, who looks exactly like me. And for the first time since Cassian bought me, I'm not sure the monster in this mansion is him. It might be the ghost wearing my face. Chapter 4. I never meant to touch him. But words came faster than I could control, sharper than my fear, cutting into the silence that always followed him like a shadow. His gaze lingered on me longer than usual, and something in it, something raw, desperate, dared me to step closer. Why do you keep watching me? I demanded, my voice trembling though I tried to keep it steady. What are you hiding, Cassian? Who is she? Why won't you tell me the truth? He didn't answer. He never answered. Instead, his jaw tightened, his fists curled at his sides, and a shiver ran along his spine, subtle but terrifying. I felt it, felt the tension that made the air around him heavier than the room could bear. I started, the words tumbling out, reckless, untamed. I have a right to know. You bought me, Cassian, and you. My hand moved before my mind could stop it. It hovered, uncertain at first, then brushed against the side of his arm. Light, almost accidental. The instant my fingers touched his skin, the world shifted. Cassian went rigid, a shudder ripping through him so violently it knocked him off balance. He stumbled backward, hands clawing at the air, and then his knees buckled. He collapsed, crashing to the floor with a thud that reverberated through my chest. My heart slammed against my ribs. Cassian! I dropped to my knees beside him, panic choking my voice. What's wrong? Are you hurt? He lay there, face pale, eyes wide and glazed, breathing ragged and shallow. There was no heat, no lust, no spark in his eyes, just terror. Real terror, deep and consuming. And something else. A pain so sharp it carved into me, even though I didn't understand it. I shook him gently. Talk to me. Tell me what's happening. His lips trembled, trying to form words, but nothing came. He flinched every time I reached closer, as if my presence itself was a blade. And then, finally, a whisper. Go away. Froze. Not a command. Not an order. Plea. Broken. Shattered. I realized then that the rumors weren't just lies. They were incomplete truths. He wasn't incapable. He wasn't impotent. He wasn't cold or cruel because he didn't want to feel. He was terrified. Terrified of me. Terrified of desire. Terrified of intimacy. Terrified of something buried so deep inside him that even he couldn't face it. I couldn't stay there, kneeling, helpless. Ran. Out of the room. Down the hall. Into the nearest study, where the dim light flickered over shelves lined with books, and slammed the door behind me. I leaned against it, panting, trying to make sense of what had just happened. When Cassian's doctor, Helix Rowan, arrived the next morning, I almost didn't recognize him. He was not the clinical, composed man I imagined a billionaire's private physician to be. His eyes were sharp, calculating, almost predatory, but there was an undercurrent of something darker, knowledge too heavy for anyone else to carry. He found me in the library, hunched over a desk, trembling. "You touched him," Helix stated matter-of-factly, not as a question. It wasn't on purpose." I snapped, defensive, the words spilling out like acid. "He collapsed. He couldn't, he's broken." Helix's eyes darkened, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of fear that had nothing to do with Cassian. "Broken," he repeated slowly. "Do you even know what you're talking about?" I shook my head, my hands twisting in my lap. "No, I saw him collapse. He wasn't normal." "Normal?" Helix stepped closer, voice low, almost a growl. "He's not incapable of anything. Not because his body fails him. Not because he doesn't want to feel. You need to understand this, Elara. Cassian Blackwell isn't impotent. He's terrified." Terrified. The word bounced in my head, sharper than any blade. "Terrified of what?" I whispered. "Of intimacy," Helix said. "Of desire. Of trust. Of himself. And yes," he hesitated, a grim line cutting across his forehead. "Of you." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Me?" "Yes." His gaze didn't waver. "Your presence, your touch, your very being, he can't bear it. His body shuts down the moment anything triggers the memories he's buried." I frowned, confusion twisting into dread. "Memories? What memories?" Helix exhaled, the weight of it filling the room like smoke. "When Cassian was a teenager, he was captured by a secretive organization known as the Crimson Circle. Elite, ruthless. They broke him, rewired him. They taught him to associate intimacy with pain, with guilt, with punishment. He survived by shutting down his responses completely, because if he felt, he couldn't survive." I recoiled, horrified. "They did this to him. That's monstrous." Helix's eyes narrowed. "You have no idea, Elara. Not only did they break his body, but they rewired his mind. Desire became a weapon. Lust became a cage. He wasn't allowed to feel anything without suffering consequences that would scar him for life. And it worked." I sat back, mind spinning. "So, he's not incapable, he's afraid." "Exactly." Helix's tone was sharp. "Afraid of touch. Afraid of desire. Afraid of himself. Afraid of anyone who threatens to awaken what he's buried. You, unknowingly, did that when you touched him. That's why he collapsed. Not because he's broken. Not because he's impotent. Because he was forced to bury a part of himself he still hasn't forgiven. And your touch triggered it." The room felt smaller suddenly, tighter, suffocating. I hadn't realized how close I'd been to stepping into a war I couldn't fight. Not a physical war, but one of memory, trauma, and secrets so dark I couldn't even imagine surviving it. Does that mean he could?" I stammered, my voice barely audible. "Feel again. Be normal." Helix's lips pressed into a thin line. "Not normal. Not easily. What you have to understand is this. He's never been safe. Not with anyone. And anyone who touches him risks triggering the same collapse you witnessed. Only someone who can reach him without fear might be able to awaken him. But it's dangerous. For both of you." I swallowed hard, heart hammering. Dangerous. I'd felt that the moment my fingers brushed him. But this was more than danger. This was a storm, and I was standing in the eye of it. "You have to be careful," Helix warned. "He doesn't know what you are yet." He can't see past the fear he carries. He's haunted Elara. And until he trusts, until he forgives himself, nothing will change. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I fully understood. All I knew was that the man I had been sold to, the man I had already begun to fear, admire and wonder about, wasn't broken in the way everyone whispered about. He was scarred, terrified, haunted, and somehow entirely human. But knowing the truth didn't make it easier. If anything, it made me more aware of how fragile everything was. How close we were to catastrophe. How one misstep could break him completely or break me. And despite everything, despite the fear that gripped me whenever I remembered his collapse, despite the knowledge of what the Crimson Circle had done, I couldn't stop thinking about him. About the way his storm-gray eyes lingered on me. About the way he shivered when I touched him. About the fear and pain and humanity that hid behind the mask of ice. And a part of me, a foolish, reckless, dangerous part, wondered if I could be the one to reach him. To awaken the man behind the terror. To face the storm he carried and survive. Because for the first time since he bought me, I realized this wasn't just about being sold to a billionaire. This was about surviving the man he had been forced to become. And perhaps surviving the man he had yet to be. Chapter 5. Sleep had stopped being a refuge. Every night it became a battlefield. A girl screaming. A blade slicing through air thick with smoke. A room burning around her. The flames licking walls like angry tongues. A music box playing its warped melody over and over. Haunting and impossible to escape. And always the girl looked like me. I woke drenched in sweat, lungs heaving. Hands shaking as if I just pulled them free from the fire. My room, the mansion, the locked doors, they weren't safe. They never had been. The nightmares followed me, bleeding into reality, blurring the line between what I remembered and what I feared. I couldn't go to Cassian. Not yet. Not after what I'd seen. He didn't need my questions, my curiosity. He needed distance, control, calm. And I wasn't calm. Not anymore. So I found Dante. Cassian's right-hand man. Silent. Deadly. Loyal. Someone I had come to trust in small, careful measures. He had always been there, watching, waiting. His presence both comforting and suffocating. I found him in the library, leaning against the edge of the fireplace, arms crossed, eyes narrowing as soon as I walked in. "You're late," he said, voice low, teasing but sharp. "I can't sleep," I admitted, my words almost a whisper. Dante's expression softened, just enough for me to see the human beneath the stone. "Nightmares again." I nodded, and the tremor in my voice betrayed more than I wanted. He didn't ask why. He didn't pry. He just gestured to a chair. "Sit. Tell me what you remember." I sank into the leather seat, clutching the edge as if it would hold me together. "It's the same dream. Every night. A girl is screaming. Blade. Fire. Music box. I look like her. Feel like her. But it's not me." Dante leaned forward, elbows on his knees, fingers steepled. His expression changed, the way it did when he already knew something he didn't want to confirm aloud. "That girl," he murmured, and I stiffened. "What about her?" I asked, heart hammering. He took a deep breath, slow, measured, as if the words he was about to speak were explosives. "Her name was Leora. She was Cassian's only friend." Froze. "Friend?" I echoed, disbelief lacing my voice. "She's the girl in the photo. The one in the forbidden room?" Dante's nod was slow, deliberate. "Yes." I shivered. "But she's dead." Dante's jaw tightened. "Not just dead. Murdered. And Cassian, he never recovered from it." The words hit me harder than any blow could. My chest constricted, and I pressed my hands to it, as if I could keep my heart from breaking apart. "He never recovered," I whispered, voice shaking. "After all these years, he's just haunted." Dante's eyes met mine, intense, serious, sharp. Haunted doesn't even begin to cover it, Elara. He's been living with a ghost, and that ghost looks like you. I recoiled. Me? What are you talking about? He leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper, heavy with a weight I couldn't bear. You look like her because you were there, Elara. You saw what happened. My stomach lurched. My breath caught in my throat. I don't remember. I wasn't there. Dante's gaze didn't waver. You were. 14 years ago. You were there when Elara died. You saw it all. And somehow, you survived. Cassian. He saved you, but he buried the memory so deep that you forgot it too. I shook my head violently, trying to deny the impossible. No. That's insane. I don't remember anything like that. Your mind blocked it, Dante said calmly, almost gently, as if he were explaining a broken machine. It was too much. Too violent. Wrong. Your memories were sealed to protect you. I pressed my hands over my eyes, rocking slightly in the chair. So, every dream, every nightmare, it's real. Dante's nod was slow, deliberate. Yes. Those aren't dreams, Elara. They're fragments, pieces of what you witnessed. And they're trying to surface now, because you're back in the place where it all happened, with the man who never stopped blaming himself for it. I sank into the chair, head in my hands. My heart raced, mind spinning. 14 years. And I had lived my life believing it was someone else, somewhere else, some other tragedy. But now, the mansion, Cassian, the forbidden room, the photograph, it all lined up. Every whispered rumor, every haunting glance, every night of terror. It made sense. Terrible sense. Dante's voice broke into my spiraling thoughts. You're not alone in this, Elara. Can help you. Cassian can't face it yet, but I looked up, panic and disbelief fighting for dominance in my chest. Help me. How do you help someone remember something so horrible? He exhaled, the sound heavy. By telling the truth. By piecing it together little by little. By helping you survive the memories instead of letting them destroy you. I felt a tear slip down my cheek. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I want to remember. Dante leaned closer. His hand brushed mine. Not intrusive, not demanding, but grounding. You don't have a choice anymore. The memories will surface, whether you want them to or not. And the longer you run from them, the more dangerous it becomes. You need to know. For your sake. And for his. I shook my head. For his sake. He nodded, dark eyes unflinching. Because if you start remembering and he doesn't, the truth will tear you apart. And him along with it. You need to be ready. Strong. And you need to know everything he never told you. The room was silent after that. My mind reeled with questions I couldn't speak aloud. My chest felt tight, lungs burning, head spinning. Finally I whispered, barely audible. What happened to Elara? Dante's lips pressed into a thin line. She was killed. Not an accident. Murdered by someone he trusted. Someone who wanted to destroy him and the only person he cared for. Cassian was there. He tried to save her. He failed. And he's been failing himself ever since. I stared at him, speechless. The weight of it settled in my chest like stones. 14 years. A girl who looked like me, a friend who had died, and a man haunted by everything he had failed to protect. And I had been in the middle of it all. You're saying? I breathed, voice shaking. I saw it. I remember nothing but it's me, him. Elara, all of it. Yes, Dante said softly, like admitting it aloud hurt him too. You were there, Elara. And now, 14 years later, you've returned to the scene of a crime neither of you can forget. The past isn't done with you yet. My head dropped into my hands. The nightmares weren't dreams. A fire. the screaming, the music box, all pieces of a memory I had buried, a memory that had shaped everything, even if I didn't know it. And the weight of it was suffocating. 'Cause now there was no running, no forgetting, only remembering and surviving. Chapter 6. The mansion has begun to feel alive, and not in the way that houses hum with warmth or life. No, this place pulses with Cassian, with his fear, with the memories that chain him tighter than any lock on a door. I've started noticing the patterns, how the air thickens when he enters a room, how the floor seems to stiffen beneath his steps, how the light catches the silver in his hair in a way that makes him look simultaneously untouchable and unbearably human. And yet, every time I think I can approach him, something shatters. It happened first in the study. I was crying quietly, my tears soaking the handkerchief I'd grabbed from my room. A memory had surfaced, something jagged and raw from the night Elara died, and I couldn't stop it. The sound of my own sobs seemed to echo louder than it should have. I didn't realize Cassian was there until the glass on his desk exploded, shards raining across the floor, glinting dangerously in the dim light. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there, hands curled at his sides, chest heaving as if breathing itself was a battle. I'm sorry, I stammered, trying to explain, though nothing I could say would justify it. He didn't answer. He never did. Not in moments like that. Instead, he turned sharply, leaving the room without a word. The echo of his footsteps followed me like a threat. Then there were the times I came too close. I'd try to brush a strand of hair from my face, accidentally bump into him, stand nearer than I should. His breath would catch, sharp and shallow. His hands would twitch, almost as if he wanted to push me away but feared he might hurt me instead. Once, I caught him standing in a doorway, shoulders rigid, watching me sleep. I thought I'd imagined it until I woke to him whispering in his sleep. His voice was soft, strained, barely audible over the stillness of the night. Elara. Sorry. I should have saved you. I froze, heart thudding so hard I thought he might hear it. His eyes snapped open, storm gray and wide, locking onto mine before he jerked upright, shoving away from the bed as if my gaze alone could burn him. Go back to your room, he snapped, voice low, dangerous, yet trembling. But I couldn't. Not anymore. Not when every whispered apology, every tremor in his body, every haunted glance he gave me screamed the same thing. He was falling apart around me. And I was the reason. He said it once, his voice rough, raw, almost breaking. You're the only thing that can ruin me. The words slashed into me. Not because he accused me, but because they carried something else, something I didn't understand at first. Fear. Desire. Obsession. A warning wrapped in confession. I should have run. I should have obeyed his pleas to stay away from the forbidden room, to stop chasing memories better left buried. But I didn't. Every fragment of my past demanded to surface, and every time I remembered, I saw him differently. Not as the untouchable, cold, monstrous billionaire I thought he was, but as a man destroyed long before I ever arrived. Sometimes I catch him staring at me in the quietest moments. When he thinks I'm distracted, when he believes I can't see him. And in those moments, he isn't the man who buys women like objects or whispers cold orders. He's just a man, broken, haunted, human. Can feel it. His walls cracking. His control slipping. His obsession and fear tangled together, inseparable. It's terrifying. And thrilling. And dangerous. The forbidden room calls to me always. I don't need to see it to feel its pull. The music box melody, the blood-stained ribbon, the photograph of Elara, they echo in my mind, demanding answers. Cassian has begged me not to go back, not to remember. And each time he does, it only fuels my resolve. One evening, he caught me near the hallway leading to the locked room. His face was pale, jaw tight, hands trembling slightly at his sides. Stay away from that door, he said. His voice low and quivering with restraint. I can't, I admitted. I have to remember. I need to know the truth. He staggered back like my words were physical blows. His eyes, storm gray and haunted, locked on mine. Elara. I can't, you can't, you'll destroy me. I'm not trying to destroy you, I whispered, stepping closer despite the shiver that ran down my spine. I just need to understand you. I need to understand what happened to Leora. To you. To me. His entire body tensed. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried to speak, but nothing came. Then he did the only thing he could do. He stepped away, stumbling back like he was fighting against a tide that threatened to pull him under. I realized then that the mansion itself was a reflection of him. Every locked door, every forbidden wing, every shadowed corner, an extension of the fear and obsession he carried inside. And somehow I was part of it. My presence, my curiosity, my very existence was a threat and a key all at once. That night I couldn't sleep. I wandered the halls, heart pounding, ears straining for the slightest sound. And then I heard it. Soft, deliberate, almost mournful. Elara! Froze. His voice, low and shaking, carried through the shadows. I followed it, careful, deliberate, until I found him in the study, sitting on the edge of the desk, hands gripping his knees. His storm-gray eyes met mine, haunted and raw. You shouldn't be here, he said, voice barely a whisper. I had to, I replied. I can't stop remembering. And I can't stop feeling whatever this is between us. He flinched at my words, as though I'd struck him. You don't understand, he said, voice trembling. If you get too close. I can't. You can't what? I pressed, stepping nearer despite the warning in his gaze. He shivered like my presence alone was a physical weight on him. Feel. I can't bear it. It destroys me. And then, almost in a breath, almost a confession, he added, You're the only thing that can break me. And the only thing that can ruin me. The words settled over us like a storm. Fear, desire, obsession, they coiled around us, impossible to separate, dangerous to touch, impossible to ignore. I realized in that moment that I wasn't just drawn to him. I was entangled with him, bound by something older than memory, something buried in blood and fire and loss. And maybe, just maybe, I was the only one who could save him. Or the only one who could finish what Leora started. Chapter 7. I knew something had shifted the moment I saw her standing in the doorway of the main hall. Isadora Blackwell, Cassian's adopted sister. Fragile-looking, a porcelain doll perched on spindly legs, but I'd learned long ago that fragility often hides the sharpest edges. She wasn't supposed to be back for another week. She had been on a retreat, Cassian had said. Somewhere remote and protected, where she could heal from whatever haunted her delicate mind. But there she was, stepping into the mansion as if it were her personal stage. Her gaze sweeping across the rooms like a queen reclaiming her throne. And when her eyes landed on me, something cold slithered through my veins. She smiled, sweet, saccharine, flawless. But it didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes were dangerous. She moved toward Cassian first, arms outstretched. The hug he returned was tentative, awkward, like touching her was both necessary and perilous. But she clung to him anyway, pressing herself against his chest, inhaling his scent as if she could claim a piece of him for herself. I stayed back, watching, my gut twisting. There was something about the way she moved, the way she breathed in his presence, that screamed control and manipulation. And when she finally turned toward me, the smile didn't waver. But the eyes, they were the eyes of someone who knows secrets. Dark, predatory, measuring, calculating. She walked toward me slowly, deliberately, as if she were testing the air around me. Her fingertips brushed the edge of the piano I had practiced on, lingered over the music box I had found in the forbidden room, hovered over the chair I had slept in. Every touch seemed intentional, every movement a message. Hello, Elara, she said finally, voice soft, melodic, honeyed poison. I've heard so much about you. I stiffened. I'm sure you have, I replied cautiously, my words clipped. Her smile widened, unnerving in its sweetness. Cassian told me you're special. I didn't like the way she said that word, special. It didn't sound flattering. Sounded like a warning. I don't know what you mean, I said, though my voice betrayed my curiosity. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing just slightly. Oh, I think you do. Cassian, who had been lingering near the fireplace, cleared his throat. He looked at her, storm-gray eyes tense, hands clenched. There was a subtle warning in his stance, something only I seemed to notice, because he didn't speak it. But Isadora did. She ignored him entirely and approached me, close enough that I could feel the faint scent of her perfume, rose with a bite of something metallic like blood. Her hand brushed against mine as she reached for a book on the shelf I had touched earlier, lingering just long enough to make me flinch. Everything you do, everything you touch, she murmured almost to herself. He notices. And he remembers. But you remind him of someone. My pulse skipped a beat. Who? She leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper that only I could hear. Her. The girl he couldn't save. Elara. And you, my dear, you look just like her. The blood drained from my face. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had seen the photograph, had felt the echoes of the nightmares, but hearing it spoken aloud, by someone who wasn't me, who wasn't Cassian, made it terrifyingly real. Her eyes glittered, cold amusement dancing across them. Do you know what that means, Elara? I swallowed hard. No. It means he bought you because of her. She pressed the words as if they were a blade. Because you remind him of everything he lost. Everything he can never fix. I wanted to step back. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. But her smile never faltered, and I could see the truth in the way she said it. And then she whispered, barely audible over the crackling of the fire. And we both know how she ended. The room tilted. My stomach lurched. She knew. She knew Elara. She knew the night. The fire. The blood. The screams. She had been there. I took a step back, nearly tripping over the rug. You were there. I whispered. She tilted her head, eyes sharp and calculating. Of course I was. Who do you think helped him bury the pieces? Who do you think watched over the aftermath? Cassian's voice cut through the tension, low and dangerous. Isadora. Her smile remained sweet and venomous. Cassian doesn't like it when I speak the truth. But you need to hear it. She leaned closer, and I felt the air between us thicken. I saw everything, Elara. Every moment, every choice, every failure. And now I get to watch you step into her shoes. My breath caught. Why are you telling me this? What do you want from me? Her eyes glittered like dark crystal. I want you to understand the game you've stepped into. Cassian, fragile as he is, he can't protect you from yourself. But I can. Or I can watch you destroy yourself trying. I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. Every instinct screamed danger. Every instinct screamed that she wasn't just a girl with too many secrets. She was a predator, a shadow of the night, a reminder of everything I had survived and everything Cassian had failed to save. And the moment Cassian left the room, called away by some business he could not refuse, her demeanor shifted. The sweetness fell away like a mask. The arsenic in her eyes took its rightful place. She leaned toward me, so close I could see the tiny flecks of green in her pupils. He bought you because you remind him of her. And we both know how she ended. I backed away, heart hammering. You shouldn't. But she smiled, sharp and cruel. Oh, but I should. Because I know the truth, Elara. I know his trauma. I know the fire. I know the blood. And now I know you. You were there too. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My knees nearly gave way. I had suspected it, hoped it wasn't true. But hearing it, knowing she had seen me, known Leora, it was unbearable. You were there, I stammered, voice shaking. Her smile widened. Yes, and unlike you, I remembered. I stayed. I watched. I learned. I waited. And now I see you, stepping into the memory I still carry. I felt the walls close in. My hands shook. My mind raced, trying to process what she was saying, trying to survive the weight of the truth she wielded like a weapon. She tilted her head, eyes glinting. Cassian's weakness is you. His obsession is you. I get to watch it unravel. I swallowed hard, words failing me. Every instinct screamed that she was dangerous, that her knowledge made her a weapon, and that my presence alone was enough to set her loose. And for the first time I realized just how fragile Cassian really was. Not the billionaire. Not the untouchable, cold man everyone whispered about. But the man haunted by a fire, a girl, and a sister who knew too much. I was in the middle of it all. Chapter 8. I started sensing the shift before I saw it. The air in the mansion felt wrong. Thicker. Colder. Electric, with something Cassian refused to name. He had been pacing for days, silently, obsessively, like a man stalking his own shadow. Every door he passed he locked twice. Every window he checked 3 times. And every time I moved, his eyes snapped toward me. Fearful, sharp, feral. I told myself it was paranoia. Until the first stranger appeared. Happened at dawn. I woke with a gasp, my heart hammering, convinced I'd heard someone whispering near my bed. When I sat up, the room was empty. But the window was open. It had been locked the night before. I was sure of it. And then I saw him. Across the courtyard, behind the line of trees, a man stood perfectly still, watching the mansion, watching my window. He didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even pretend to hide. He just stared at me. I stumbled back from the window, nearly tripping over the sheets. By the time I ran to the hallway to find Cassian, the man was gone. But the trees still trembled as if something inhuman had slipped through them. Cassian didn't take it well. He exploded, throwing chairs, overturning tables, snarling at Dante like a cornered animal. I'd never seen him so unhinged, so close to breaking. He can't be here, Cassian whispered over and over. They can't be here. Not again. Not for her. I didn't know if he meant the girl in the photograph. Or me. But the next sign came anyway. A symbol appeared carved into the glass of my bedroom door the next morning. A spiraling rose made of intersecting circles. The mark of the crimson circle. I touched it with trembling fingers. The edges were sharp, fresh. Someone had carved it from inside the hallway. Inside the mansion. Someone who belonged here. Someone Cassian trusted. I heard footsteps behind me and spun. Dr. Helix Rowan stood there, pale. His eyes flicking from me to the symbol. He exhaled a curse and rubbed a hand over his face. "This isn't good," he murmured. I forced my voice steady. "What does it mean?" "It means," he said quietly, "that someone wants him to remember." Chill crawled through me. "Remember what?" Rowan's eyes softened, pitying almost. Everything he buried. Everything that broke him. Everything the circle did to him. My throat tightened. And me. What do they want from me? He hesitated. Then he said the words that split the world open. "Someone wants you here, Elara. Someone wants you close enough to trigger him. Someone wants Cassian pushed to the edge. Broken enough to fall again." I stared at him, nausea rising. "Why me?" "You remind him of her," Rowan said simply. "But it's more than that. You're the only variable Cassian can't control." I wanted to deny it. But the truth was staring at me from my own nightmares. The girl screaming. The fire. The music box. The blood. Name. Elara. My chest constricted. Are you saying I was? Yes, Rowan said softly. You were there that night. A tremor moved through me, violent and deep. I gripped the doorframe for balance. But he doesn't remember me, I whispered. He remembers you more than he's willing to admit, Rowan said. You're the beginning of his collapse and the end of his sanity. And whoever carved that symbol wants the collapse to happen again. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The walls felt too close, too alive. Cassian was recovering, Rowan continued. Slowly, carefully. Years of work. But now, the circle's symbols, the strangers watching the house, your nightmares resurfacing. This is orchestrated. I swallowed hard. By who? Rowan's gaze drifted down the hall. Someone inside this mansion. The words struck like a blade. Inside. Not outside the gate. Not an intruder. Someone who touched the same doorknobs I touched. Someone who shared meals with Cassian. Someone who smiled at me. Isadora. Rowan himself. Any one of them could be the saboteur. My pulse roared in my ears. Be careful who you trust, Rowan warned. Including me. He walked away, leaving his footsteps echoing down the corridor. That night the mansion felt like a trap. Every mirrorless wall glistened with shadows. Every creak sounded like breath. Every flicker of light seemed to watch me. Cassian grew worse. He barely slept. He barely ate. He flinched at every sound, every touch. He paced the halls like he was waiting for a ghost to break through the floorboards. When I tried to calm him, he shook his head violently. You don't understand, he whispered, voice raw. They want me to see her. They want me to remember. They want me to fail again. I reached out to touch his arm. He recoiled violently. His entire body convulsed. His breathing collapsed into ragged gasps. His knees hit the floor. Cassian! I dropped beside him, grabbing his shoulders. Hey, look at me. You're safe. I'm right here. But he wasn't hearing me. His eyes were fixed on something far away. Something only he could see. A memory he'd spent years burying, now pulling him under like quicksand. Not again, he whispered. Not again, not her, not her. He wasn't talking about Elara. He was talking about me. A cold shiver sliced down my spine. The crimson circle wasn't just sending symbols or strangers. They were resurrecting his trauma. They were using me as the trigger. They were dismantling him piece by piece. And I realized something even worse. I wasn't just sold to Cassian. I wasn't purchased by accident. I was delivered, placed, positioned, inserted into his life like a detonator. Someone wanted me inside the mansion. Someone wanted me close to him. Someone wanted his fragile, fractured mind pushed until it snapped. And the more I thought about it, the more it became painfully clear. That someone already had access to every room, every hallway, every secret. That someone knew Cassian's past. Knew mine. Knew Elara. Knew the fire. That someone lived under the same roof. Chapter 9. It began with a laugh. Sweet, tinkling, terrifying. A sound that crawled under my skin, winding itself around my bones, freezing my blood. Isadora. I turned just as she appeared in the doorway of the forbidden room. Her presence almost unreal in the dim candlelight. She looked untouched by time, porcelain skin, green eyes gleaming with cruelty. But her smile, it was no longer the sugar-coated sweetness she used to cloak herself. It was predator and executioner all at once. I think it's time you two children remember, she purred. Cassian and I both froze. My heart raced so violently it felt like it would burst from my chest. Cassian's body tensed next to mine, every muscle coiled and ready to protect, but I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't ready. Not for this. Not for her. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her with a soft click. A lock turned. The room was ours. Why? I managed to choke out. My voice trembled with fear, rage, confusion. Why? She echoed, tilting her head like the question itself was absurd. Because, Elara, you're the last piece of the puzzle. You're the witness. The only one who saw everything. The only one who remembers. And the only one who could ruin me. My stomach dropped. Witness. Remember what? Her smile sharpened, and she traced a finger along the edge of the music box sitting on the floor. The lid opened, releasing that sickly sweet melody I knew too well. The tune of fire, screams, blood. Cassian flinched, and suddenly it all came back. The smoke, the fire, Leora's scream, a small hand reaching for mine, a blade that glinted too brightly in the candlelight, my own small voice crying out, terrified, desperate. The memories slammed into me like a flood. I gasped, hands flying to my mouth. Cassian froze beside me, eyes wide, unblinking. And then he remembered. The haze in his eyes cleared. The storm behind his pupils returned. Rage, fear, guilt, and love all colliding violently. Elara, he whispered, voice cracking. You were there. Yes, I whispered back, voice trembling. I remember everything. Isadora laughed again, soft and cruel. Finally. Isn't it beautiful? The truth. The past coming alive. All because of me. I turned to her, trembling, fists clenching. You did this. You killed her. You tortured him. You're the Crimson Circle. She smiled wider, almost triumphant. And now you see, don't you? You were delivered to him. Sold, yes, but orchestrated by me. You, Elara, are the final witness. Without you remembering. Without him remembering. I could have remained in the shadows forever. But now. She gestured to the music box, the room, the walls that had seen too much. Now I finish what I started. Cassian's hands gripped my arms, pulling me close. His breath was ragged, his eyes stormy. Elara, don't listen. She's lying. Don't give her the satisfaction. But even I couldn't stop the tremor of fear that ran through me. She had proof. She had power. She had orchestrated everything. The sale, the mansion, my nightmares. She was dangerous beyond reason. And then she advanced. The movement was smooth, predator-like, calculated. She had a blade in her hand now, glinting in the candlelight. My pulse spiked, my body froze. You see, she whispered, her voice soft and deadly. You two children survived once. But children don't get second chances, not in my world. Not when I want the final act. Cassian's eyes darkened. He stepped in front of me, every muscle taut, trembling with barely contained fury. Not this time. Not her. Not you. I felt a pang of terror, both for him and for myself. The room was small. No escape. The music box played its sickening lullaby. The walls were lined with shadows of memories, of fire, of blood, and of death. Isadora circled us like a viper, blade glinting. Oh, Cassian, so brave. So strong. But brave and strong doesn't save you from yourself, or from the past. She lunged suddenly, fast, precise. I screamed, but Cassian moved before I could. The blade missed him by inches. The tip caught his sleeve, slicing the fabric, but not his skin. He spun, grabbing her wrist, wrestling the blade down, his fury unleashed. You will not touch her, he roared, voice breaking. Rage, pain, and love all pouring out at once. I realized then something incredible. He wasn't just fighting for me. He was fighting for both of us. For our past. For our stolen childhood. For the girl in the photograph who had saved us without ever knowing it. I remembered then, the small hand, the girl's smile, her bravery. Leora had saved me. And now Cassian's strength, his love, his protection, it was saving both of us. Isadora struggled, thrashing against his grip. You cannot stop me. You were weak then, Cassian. And you're weak now. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. His entire being radiated fury, control, and a desperate, fragile strength that I had never seen before. I found my own courage. I grabbed a candle from the table, holding it like a weapon. The flame danced between us. Leave us, I screamed, voice cracking with a mix of terror and defiance. Leave him. Leave me. You're finished, Isadora. She froze. Her eyes widened just slightly. Her mouth opened as if to speak, but I didn't wait. I pressed forward, closer to Cassian. We were back to back now, facing her together. The music box played. The room vibrated with the weight of memories, but now we weren't alone. We were united. You underestimate me, Isadora hissed, fury and disbelief intertwining. You think 2 children can survive what I built? Cassian didn't answer. He just gripped my hand, eyes locked on hers, and whispered something I could barely hear. Not children. Survivors. Not broken. Something shifted in her then. Fear. Recognition. Perhaps even doubt. I realized the truth of it in that moment. She had power. She had cruelty. But she didn't have us. The girl who had saved us, Leora, lived in memory, in courage, in every beat of my heart and every breath Cassian took. We were the end of her game. The final act she hadn't planned for. And she knew it. Isadora faltered. She backed away, blade lowering just slightly. Her face twisted, a mixture of rage and disbelief. You think this is over, she spat. Cassian's grip on my hand tightened. His voice, calm but deadly, carried through the room. It is over, Isadora. For you. And for the Crimson Circle. For us, it's a new beginning. The music box finally wound down. The melody faded. The past exploded in our minds, raw and bloody, but the present, the here and now, was ours. I clung to Cassian, trembling, tears streaking my face. But they weren't tears of fear anymore. They were tears of relief, of survival, of vengeance earned and reclaimed. Isadora slunk backward, vanishing into the shadows of the mansion, but I knew she would never truly disappear. The circle would always lurk, always threaten. But we were no longer children. We were survivors. And the dead girl, the one who had saved us both, was finally at peace. We had faced the truth. We had faced blood. And we had survived. Together. Chapter 10. The mansion had never felt more alive, or more dangerous. Every shadow seemed to whisper, every creak of the floorboards a threat. But this time I wasn't trembling. Not entirely. I had Cassian at my side, and together, we had survived Isadora's twisted games. Survived the Crimson Circle's terror. Survived the fire of our own buried memories. The music box still lay open in the forbidden room, its melody gone but the echo lingering, a ghost of the past. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The memories it had unleashed were already seared into my mind. Cassian's grip was steady on my hand. His storm-gray eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. He had changed. The haunted, broken man I had first met was still there, somewhere deep, but so was the protector, the warrior, the man willing to face his demons and mine. And now, the final reckoning had come. Started with the whisper. A soft, deliberate sound, carried on the cold air of the hallway. Someone moving. Not running. Not hiding. Watching. Waiting. Stay close, Cassian murmured, his voice low and dangerous. Whatever comes, don't let go of me. I nodded, fear and determination twisting together. He had saved me once before, and now it was my turn to stand beside him. To survive with him, not just because of him. The footsteps grew louder. And then, The door at the end of the hall slammed open. Isadora. Her hair wild, her eyes alight with fury, her hands gripping twin blades that glinted in the dim light. "You think you can end me," she hissed. "You think surviving the past gives you victory. This mansion, this house, this life. It belongs to me." Cassian stepped forward, shielding me without hesitation. "It ends tonight," he said. His voice was steel, and I saw something in him that had never existed before. The courage to face the impossible. I could see the shadow of her grin falter, just slightly when I raised my own hands, not to fight but to show I wasn't afraid. The girl who had survived the fire, the memories, the terror had returned. And she was no longer a child. "You don't understand," Isadora spat, lunging. But I was ready. Cassian intercepted her, the blades clashing with a metallic scream that echoed through the mansion. Sparks flew as they collided, and I could see the desperation in her moves. Controlled, deadly, but frantic. I realized then what I had to do. The circle had tried to break us by fear, by memory, by trauma. But this time the power wasn't hers. The power was ours. Together. I reached for the music box. My hands trembled, but I didn't hesitate. Twisting it shut, I felt a surge of resolve. Its melody had summoned the ghosts of the past, but now it would be a signal, a declaration that we were taking back control. Isadora froze for a fraction of a second, recognition flashing in her eyes. And that was all the opening Cassian and I needed. He struck first, his movements precise, controlled, like the man I had seen only in flashes, the man before trauma had chained him. She deflected, snarling, but Cassian's hand didn't waver. He moved like a storm, focused, unrelenting. I didn't run. I joined him, grabbing a fallen candlestick and swinging it with all my strength. She staggered, surprised by my courage, by my refusal to be afraid. The fight was brutal, raw, a clash of everything we had survived. Blades, fire, memory, and rage collided in that hallway. And in the chaos I saw it, her hesitation. The mask had slipped. She was no longer untouchable. "You're finished, Isadora." I screamed, feeling the power in my voice, the strength of every memory, every nightmare, every scar we had earned. Cassian moved in unison with me, and together we forced her back, cornered against the wall that had witnessed so much death. Her eyes darted to the music box at my feet. "No," she whispered. "No. This ends now," Cassian said. And with a single precise motion, he disarmed her. Both blades clattered to the floor. She backed away, trapped, cornered, finally powerless. I stepped forward, holding my ground. "You can't hurt us anymore. Not her, not me, not him. It's over." She laughed then, sharp and hollow, but there was no fire in it. Just desperation. "You think this is victory? You think surviving the past makes you strong?" I shook my head. "No. But surviving it together does." Cassian grabbed my hand, and we both stared at her. The mansion held its breath, the shadows waiting. And then she finally stumbled, fear overtaking fury, and ran, out of the hallway, out of the mansion, disappearing into the night. The house fell silent. I sank to the floor, exhausted, trembling. Cassian knelt beside me, wrapping me in a careful, protective embrace. We didn't speak at first. Words weren't necessary. The weight of the past, the blood, the terror, it all pressed down on us. But we had survived. Together. "Are you okay?" he whispered finally, brushing a strand of hair from my face. His touch was careful, tender, full of unspoken apology and love. I nodded, tears streaming freely. "I am now. 'Cause you're here. 'Cause we're here. Together." He didn't answer. He just held me, letting the silence speak for him. The mansion felt different now. No longer alive with fear. No longer haunted by the circle. No longer a trap of memory and trauma. It was still dark, still imposing, but it was ours. We had reclaimed it. Reclaimed ourselves. I looked up at him, seeing not the broken, haunted man from the auction, from the nightmares, from the music box. I saw him. Cassian Rhys Blackwell, the man who had survived the past and now held the future in his hands. And in that moment I realized something essential. The past would never leave us entirely. The memories, the blood, the girl who had died, all of it would always exist. But it didn't control us anymore. We were no longer children, no longer victims. We were survivors, warriors. Together. I leaned into him, feeling the strength in his arms, the warmth in his chest. "We did it," I whispered. He pressed his forehead to mine, eyes closed. "Yes, together." Outside the wind howled, but inside the mansion was still. Silent. Free for now. I didn't know what the future held. There would be challenges. Shadows still lurking. But for the first time I believed we could face them. Together. And as I looked at him, I knew one unshakable truth. No one, not Isadora, not the Crimson Circle, not the fire, not the past, could ever take us from each other again. We were free. And nothing else mattered. The music box sat closed on the floor, its song ended. The past had been faced. The blood had been acknowledged. And the night of truth, terror, and survival was finally over. We had survived. We had endured. And for the first time, we could finally live.